Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Smith. I'm a reporter here at CBS News, and I'm often covering how people access abortion. So the past 4 weeks have been really busy because many states have actually used the coronavirus pandemic as a way to restrict access to abortion. So today with me, I'm really excited. We have the CEO and president of the Center for Reproductive Rights. They are kind of the biggest law firm that protects access to abortion. And if anyone knows what's going on in the States about how people can access abortion, it is Nancy. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me and for covering this important story.
Of course. And if I'm not mistaken, ever since abortion was legalized in 1973 with Roe v. Wade, you've never seen a state just completely halt abortion services. Is that right?
Yeah, we have never had the situation that we have had now with the coronavirus crisis, where states, and Texas was the leading example, just absolutely said you can't have access to abortion care in our state. And so this was the first time since Roe versus Wade that we saw this kind of sweeping overreaching. I mean, states have done things like Alabama last year passed an abortion ban. Well, clearly not constitutional. It got thrown out right away in the courts. But this was the first time they were able effectively to shut down access for a significant period of time.
Now, of course, you have challenged many of those bans, but if you can, what is the argument on the state sides for restricting abortion access during this time?
Well, their argument, and it really is underhanded, it's not supported by medicine, it's opposed by the American Medical Association and the Organization of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and other leading experts. Their argument was that somehow they needed to shut abortion clinics to address the coronavirus crisis and, protect access to hospitals and personal protective equipment. But the reality is abortion care is almost exclusively an outpatient procedure, meaning it's done in a doctor's office or a clinical setting and not done in hospitals. So the provision of abortion services not draining hospital resources.
What I'd love to do here is that, abortion is a decisive issue. People have a lot of strong opinions about it, but the reality is that there are a lot of patients who in 8 states don't know whether or not they can get an abortion right now. So what I'd love to do, I'd love to go through all of those 8 states and just clearly figure out whether or not you can get an abortion in that state. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. And let's just say at the outset, there is no state in which there isn't at least some access to abortion care. And so I just want to start by saying people should certainly call the clinics and doctors in their state and make sure they get the information, very precisely about what the situation is in their state. There is some access in every single state.
And then I think also important to note is that this is, as I'm sure you've experienced, an extremely fast-moving story. So these things, I'm sure you can speak to this, but these things change rapidly, right?
Absolutely. We will be, still sitting at our desks at 10 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden the court order comes down, and our lawyers are back on the phone with the clinics about what to do next, open, don't open tomorrow morning.
So with all those disclaimers aside, let's get into it. Let's start with Arkansas. So what is the current status of abortion access in Arkansas?
Well, unfortunately, Arkansas is where abortion is the most restricted at the moment. And because of this week ruling from the Court of Appeals, only medication abortion, that's abortion pills, are the available method right now in Arkansas. And so that is restricted as to other procedures. The litigation is going on, but that is unfortunately the situation in Arkansas right now.
For medication abortion, how many weeks into a pregnancy can a patient receive that method of abortion?
So generally speaking, it's about 11 weeks into pregnancy. Again, everybody should check with their particular provider. Medical practice may differ, but it's about 11 weeks.
So Arkansas, medication abortion allowed. Other methods are not. Going down the line, we have Iowa. What is the status of abortion in Iowa?
So in Iowa, that is one of the places where a lawsuit was filed, and the government actually settled. And so abortion is generally available right now in Iowa.
Great. Okay. Simple. How about Ohio? Then that was one of the first states to restrict abortion access during all of this. So what's the status there?
So again, abortion is generally available right now in Ohio. Litigation is continuing, but right now it is generally available.
Okay, this seems easy. I thought it was going to be much more complicated.
That's because the litigations have been in large part successful. In every single one of the trial courts that has rendered a decision, they have given some kind of a temporary relief, meaning they have allowed some abortion services to go forward because the constitutional claim is quite strong. Women have a right to access abortion. It cannot be banned pre-viability. And abortion is a time-sensitive essential healthcare services.
So going down the line, so we have after Ohio, what about Oklahoma? Now in Oklahoma, I believe there were some pretty heavy restrictions in place in a certain moment, right?
There were, and again, it was this battle about, well, maybe just medication abortion or not. As of today, services can go forward in Oklahoma. That is because of what's called a preliminary injunction, a ruling by the court that has allowed them to go forward as of today.
Now, could that change in the future? So it's ongoing litigation?
There is ongoing litigation, unfortunately. And as we saw with the litigation in Texas, where it was back and forth, up and down to the Court of Appeals, it could change. So again, the proviso, everybody should call the clinics in their state. Don't make any assumptions until you check with your local providers.
I think we have Tennessee next.
So Tennessee, again, right now, during the pendency of litigation, generally available.
Great. And I skipped one. How about Louisiana?
Well, Louisiana, and we filed the lawsuit recently in Louisiana because of the uncertainty, because of what the Attorney General in the state was saying, and because of the way in which they were leaning on the clinics. But services are available in Louisiana. Louisiana clinics have been, our client in Shreveport has been complying with the regulations, and access is available.
I think we have a couple more states to go through. Tennessee. What is the status in Tennessee for abortion care?
In Tennessee, abortion is also generally available, so call your clinics there. The litigation's continuing, but it's generally available.
Got it. And then our last one, which is the biggest one, of course, is Texas. What is the status of abortion access in Texas right now?
Big news this week is that Texas, the clinics are now open, and the government of Texas agrees that they can be open. So that litigation has just been going back and forth for a month. It has been just heartbreaking to women in the state of Texas who have been desperate to get access to services. But this week, because there's a new executive order in the state that allows medical practices to be back in practice as long as they're meeting certain requirements, the clinics are open again in Texas.
Now, if I can get into the weeds a little bit, because I know a lot of people have and they're closely following this, what are the reasons why abortion access can continue under the new executive order compared to the previous one?
Well, first of all, to be clear, we believe that abortion access should have been able to be continued in both, that it was unconstitutional before. But the new executive order is clear that if you're not a hospital-based practice, again, abortion care is not, and if you're not looking to the state to provide personal protective equipment, then you can go ahead, whether you are a regular OBGYN practice, whether you're a dental practice, any kind of gastroenterology practice, any kind of medical practice, as long as you're not hospital-based and you are not asking the state to provide personal protective equipment, you can go forward. So it's clear that the clinics can go forward under this new governor's order.
And the AG agrees with you.
They put in papers this week in Texas saying that, the governor's order is clear and that we have made clear that we come within those exceptions. So no case in controversy, we can go forward.
Is that something that you're going to be continuing to monitor, or is it really just done?
We are going to be vigilant in monitoring to make sure that that the service provision can go forward, that there is not any kind of special harassment that's going to go on with respect to the clinic. So we're going to be in close touch in all the states in which we're working to make sure that services are open and available.
Nancy, did I miss any states that have ongoing litigation over abortion restrictions amid the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, the other litigation is also going on in the state of Alabama. And right now also services can go forward in the state of Alabama.
Now, I'd like to switch gears a little bit. I have a few questions from people on Twitter who are a little bit unclear about how they can access abortion. So I was hoping to pose those to you. So the first question is, does blocking reproductive rights during the pandemic make it more likely Roe v. Wade will be relitigated by the Supreme Court?
Well, what it makes likely is that a case could get to the Supreme Court. In fact, during the battle in Texas, when the state was trying so hard to close the clinics, the litigators got to the point where we filed for emergency action by the Supreme Court saying, hey, at least with respect to medication abortions, the abortion pills, they can't do this. Ended up getting resolved, and so withdrew that. But one of these cases, were the state to keep fighting it, could end up before the Supreme Court because, again, this is a type of restriction that the states have tried for a long time, which is unjustified medical restrictions. The Supreme Court has already said you can't use unjustified medical restrictions to shut down clinics. So it is possible that it could end up before the Supreme Court.
Wow, that's very significant. The second question we have is, if Roe v. Wade, which made abortion a fundamental constitutional right, is the law of the land now, is denying this essential, timely medical service unconstitutional?
It's absolutely unconstitutional. That has been the argument in all of the 8 states where litigation has been filed, that in essence what the state is doing is banning abortion. And they do not have a justification by that. You cannot have an outright ban on abortion prior to fetal viability. And so that has been the argument. And we think we have a really strong case, which is why the district courts have provided some kind of relief.
Third question, this is very interesting, and one that I've actually wondered myself, is how do we ensure that rural women without access to either private or public transportation have access to legal abortion?
So whether we were in the middle of a pandemic when people can't travel or not, a medication abortion should be available by telemedicine. It can be safely and effectively done by telemedicine. It is the most effective way to reach people in far off rural places because they can then go to their local pharmacy to get the pills. They don't have to drive maybe several hundred miles to a clinic. So expanding access to telemedicine is really important in all times, but absolutely essential during the coronavirus crisis.
Great. And then this is a question actually from the followers of your Twitter handle. And the question is, why, sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's kind of a funny question, but why are women not allowed to have the right to an abortion when guns are available to purchase?
Well, obviously women do have the right to abortion, and that's the most important thing. And that's why we're in court, and that's why we're winning in court. I can't speak to states' decisions to keep gun stores open or closed. But what I can say is the constitutional right to abortion is protected. It's protected now, and that's why we're winning.
Great. Nancy, what else would you add? What would you want to tell people who are listening in, watching, and confused about whether or not they can get an abortion right now?
Well, number one, I would say, very important, never assume that you can't. Always call your local clinic to find out what is available.
Great. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. I think people are going to watch this and be a little bit less confused. So thank you so much for that. And stay safe in quarantine.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for covering this.
Thank you.